Okay, good afternoon and welcome to another social emotional workshop where today we're going to be talking about there are no tricks to discipline. We have Joe back with us from Care Southeastern Michigan. Joe, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again and another wonderful topic.
Yes, and today Teresa's going to take the lead. If you guys remember what I said about Teresa yesterday or Tuesday, that she is my mentor. She taught me everything I know. So Teresa is going to take the lead today. It's my title. I created this title because, everybody thinks I'm going to read this book and I have all these tricks and manipulation and all this stuff. And it's just like, there's no tricks to discipline. It's just a relationship. So Teresa, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. And I can't remember if I introduced myself last time as far as what I do. Did I do that last time? I don't remember.
Nope, you could.
I did not. Okay, so I have two kids. I have a 31-year-old and a 29-year-old. And I took a parenting class about 28 years ago. When my son was 3, because the stuff that my mom and dad did when I was growing up, it did not work with my son. And plus, I have a lot of addiction in my family. And so I was worried about my son with he and I arguing every single day and me getting mad and punishing him. He was 3 and, arguing with a 3-year-old, what was going to happen to him down the road. And so I thought, well, I'm either going to have to do family counseling or I'm going to have to take this class my friend took, see if that helps. Well, the class she took was cheaper, so that came first. And at the time, it was like an 8-week class, and I didn't see any overnight things, but slowly things started to change between Luke, that's my son Luke, and I. And he's 31 now, and he's really not that different than that little boy that used to argue with me at 3. The only difference is he's still a leader type. He's still, opinionated, but he knows how to use those things for good instead of, using them to fight with his mother or his dad or whatever. So, and knock on wood, both of my kids are not addicted. And so, there's no guarantees in life. They're still young people, young adults. But, I gave them skills to learn how to have good esteem of themselves, feel that they're worthy. I gave them interpersonal skills and problem solving skills. So I feel that that's what has helped my kids throughout them growing up. That is what helped Lucas and I to continue to have our relationship, a good one. So it didn't change either one of us. It just made our relationship better, which is a protective factor. So that's my story. And I've been working at CARE for 21 years and teaching parenting classes for 28 years. Because I became a volunteer right away, but I didn't start working there for about 7 or 8 years. So that's what I feel helped break the addiction cycle in my little immediate family. So I feel really strong. That's why I feel so strongly about it. So I'm going to talk today about Joe's title, There Are No Tricks to Discipline. And this is going to feed off of what we talked about last Tuesday when Joe talked about the goals of misbehavior. And, it's going to just, you don't have to know what the goal is right at this moment in order for any of these tips to make sense to you. It's just going further with once I know what their goal of behavior is, I can work with it or I can, try to change it. So I want to ask you guys right off the bat, I'm going to need answers from you. What are discipline issues that you deal with or that you see out in public or that family members might have? What are you seeing out there?
My 2-year-old granddaughter constantly tells me no. And when I was raising her mom and her twin brother, they were not allowed to say no to me. They just knew you cannot say no to mom. You can reason with me. You can say, okay, can I please, or whatever. But my 2-year-old granddaughter constantly says no, no matter what I ask of her.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well,
Okay,
general
Juan, come
lack
on,
of
you gotta
self-control.
you gotta let that little girl know, no, no, no. My 8-year-old grandson, no, he will try to say no to his dad, but he'll look at me. But anyway, I think a lot of it is a lot of the young ones feel it's super entitled. Super
Well,
entitled.
I don't feel as free to discipline my granddaughter as I did my own children.
Of course, of course. I see entitlement.
Okay, anybody else?
Alan, you were going to say
Self-control
something.
issues. Self-control issues.
Self-control, okay. Okay. Anybody else? What do you see out in public when you're out at Meijer doing your grocery shopping? Anything out you see out there?
Lots of no.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to ask you guys to
Well, I would say defiance.
defiance. Okay. Defiance. Okay. Yeah, we probably see that a lot. So that's interesting. Just right off the top of my head, I would say that's pretty normal for a 2-year-old to say no. And I'll tell you why, because at that stage of development, they are going through the boss stage, what we call the boss stage. And actually what they've learned at about 18 months old is that they are not part of your body anymore. They are actually their own little autonomous person who can make their own decisions. And so they're trying to test that new power that they have. And so when they're saying no, they are testing out that power to see how it works, what's going to happen, you know. And so it's kind of like a normal thing. It's not the sign of a bad child. It's just a normal kid doing that. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk a little bit because I wasn't sure what your ages of children were or grandchildren. So I included some discipline for 4 and under. And then I also, I'm going to talk about older kids. How do we do with that? Okay. So thanks for that input. We're going to talk about those things. So now that we got that, what do you see out there? Here's the why. Why do people discipline their kids? What are they after? Just give me a couple of ideas.
A change in behavior.
Okay. What else?
Societal acclamation. I mean, sooner or later society rejects those who don't, who let's say deviate wildly from the norm.
Okay. Society doesn't work well with people who don't have boundaries.
Right.
Anything else that you guys can think of? Why would caregivers feel they need to discipline their kids?
Teach them respect.
Okay. So yeah, we want to teach them right from wrong. We also want them to know that there's consequences for their behavior, besides the things that you guys talked about. We also want to help them to learn to respect themselves and other people. They have to learn to respect themselves, because if they don't feel good about themselves, they won't, treat other people well, and vice versa.
And also, they're disciplined because they were disciplined as children. And so sometimes they're just following what, how they were raised.
Right. Yeah, so our parents role modeled that for us. In order to produce sufficient adults, we have to give them some discipline so that they know how to, they know the rules of social living. They can create those boundaries and keep themselves safe. Those are all important things. Those are the reasons why we choose to discipline our kids. So, most people try to do this, in the ways that we see other people doing, or the way that our parents role modeled for us, or the way it's always been done, threats. Wait till your dad comes home, or I'm going to take everything away and you're going to sleep on the floor, and I'll take the door off your wall, off the hinges, and you got to sleep without any privacy, or yelling or overreaction, or spanking or humiliation. That was a big thing a couple of years ago. Every time I bring it up now in my parenting classes, parents aren't sure what I'm talking about. But I remember seeing parents having kids with a sandwich board that says, I'm a loser, I yelled at my mom, or taking them to, I remember this one lady here in Detroit took her little boy to a barber shop, and he had like a small little afro, and she had him, the barber cut weird shapes into his hair, and he had to go to school that way because he was, I don't know what he was doing, bullying somebody. I'm not sure what he was doing, but she wanted him to, to know embarrassment or something. There was a guy that filmed his daughter or his son running in the rain with his backpack on all the way to school for 2 miles. I remember those about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And it seemed to be big on social media. The only thing that I can say about these forms of discipline is that they stop the behavior temporarily, but it doesn't teach that child what to do the next time their friend is over and takes their toy away. It doesn't teach the child what to do the next time they hear the word, no, you can't have this, or you can't have that, or you can't go here or there. So what they're going to do as typical people is they're going to fall back on their default system, which is, whatever it is they're used to doing, being entitled, being defiant. They're going to fall back on that because it worked before. They don't know what to do that's any different. And the other thing about this is that it makes you responsible for their behavior. So most kids don't know that they're doing something wrong until they get punished, as they're growing up from little kids on. They don't know they're doing something right until somebody rewards them. And so it makes you responsible for supervising, watching, making sure that you punish them at the right time and reward them at the right time. And one of my, not supervisor, but one of my facilitators at one time was an early childhood educator. And she said, I would have these kids in my classroom and I would try to talk to them and, problem solve with them and get them to, agree on a certain kind of behavior in the classroom and how they're going to go about doing it. And it would go in one ear and out the other because they were used to, not being talked to. They were used to either getting punished or reward. So they were having a hard time, taking in this information and, coming up with alternatives and agreements with their teacher. So, we want to produce somebody somebody said this earlier, we want to produce a child and a teenager who has self-control. And so we have to teach them what to do. We have to teach them a new code of conduct, something that, they can fall back on instead of their usual default system. And I think Joe even said this last Tuesday, it's not a single act like a threat or a spanking. It's a process. It's something that they learn over time. I heard on NPR one time that the only difference between a typical child and a gifted child is that the gifted child learns it once. They hear it once, they learn it, and they understand it. A typical child has to hear it a couple of times before they really start to understand it. So, every typical kid needs that learning curve so that they can understand, why they did something, not why, but what they did was wrong and how it affects other people. And what can I do differently next time so that I don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again? Because we want to teach them self-discipline. But two things that are very important when we're thinking about discipline is their age and stage of development. Like that 2-year-old saying no, that's typical. And it's okay for them to say no. It really is. In fact, they can say no in a respectful way. I think somebody even said that. They can say no in a respectful way. They can question. But when it gets to the point where they're growing up and they're, swearing or, using it in a way to hurt you, then that's not good. But I was raised, I'm 60 years old, and I was raised that kids are seen and not heard. And I would never either have been able to say no to my parents. But I didn't raise my kids that way because, I know what's out there, and I know who can take advantage of a child that doesn't know how to say no or is afraid to say no when they need to. So we have to think about their age and stage of development. We also have to have the belief that a new way to discipline is going to work, even if it seems strange to us. And it did to me. When I took that parenting class 28 years ago, there was a form of communication that they gave me to try during the week. And I couldn't wait to go back to the class and tell her how it didn't work, and it did work. It worked momentarily because my son wasn't used to me talking that way. And so he stopped. And that morning we had a calm, nice beginning to our day. I wasn't working at that time because my kids were little. So I was working inside the home instead of outside the home. And we actually had a peaceful start to our day. Was it like that all the time? No. But it taught me that these skills can work, if I put the work into it and have the belief that they'll work. So we've already talked about this too, that your kids' brains are developing from the moment they're born, well, even before birth, when they're a fetus, brains are developing, and that continues until they're about 25 to 27 years old. And so all the, good decision making, the empathy, the considering their consequences, anger management, that's all up in the upper part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex there, that pink part at that picture that you're looking at. And they don't actually get to that part of their brain until they're 25 years old, because their brain development starts in the back, where their, that part of their brain is attached to the spinal cord that keeps their heart beating and their lungs working. And then by the time they're a year old, there's a little part inside their brain called their amygdala that helps them bond with their parents. And that's where their emotions are and their memory is. So the rest of their brain takes about 25 years. It's a little spotty, here and there. So their thinking process is a lot slower. So everything that they are reacting to is coming from that emotional brain, not like you guys. Like if I got you guys mad, you would be up here. You would be considering the consequences of your actions. You'd be trying to regulate your emotions, and you'd be able to do that because that part of your brain right behind your forehead is totally developed already. For kids, it's not until they're 25 years old. So they're reacting to you from back here, from their emotional brain. So the first thing that we have to do when we're considering consequences or discipline is that we have to help them process their feelings. And Joe's going to talk about this more later, so I don't want to practice it or talk too much about it, but it's a way to help kids be calm when you're trying to discipline them, because discipline at first is about communication. We all want to make sure that we're on, the same train before the train leaves the station. So we got to know what the problem is. You've got to figure out where everybody's at with this problem, how they're feeling. So we have to look at our kids and their body language. How are they acting? Does the face look sad? Does it look angry? Are they cutting us off, with their arms being crossed? Do they look sad? And what does their tone sound like? Does their tone sound really, breathy and up here, like they feel insecure? Or is their tone, normal and modulated? Or does it sound really loud and angry? So we're taking all that in and we're thinking, how's this child feeling or reacting? And then we're reflecting it back. Now, this is not a discipline technique. It's the beginning of discipline, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that kid in touch with what's really bothering them. Why did this happen? How are they feeling about it? And so this is just validation right here. And this is actually what I used that day when I thought to myself, okay, this is not going to work for Lucas. He is going to like not buy into this. This is just blah, blah, blah. Because what used to happen with Luke is every day his dad would leave for work like at 7 o'clock in the morning and he wouldn't get home until 3. So Lucas would wake up and he'd go, where's dad? And I'd say, Lucas, dad is at work. You'll see him when he comes home this afternoon after lunchtime. And, but I wanted to say goodbye to him. I missed dad. You know, I wanted to kiss him and hug him before he left. Well, Luke, of course you did. I know that, but don't worry about it. Just, you know, you'll be fine. He'll be home this afternoon. And then that was how our day started. The little top went in. He was at 3 years old, still having temper tantrums. So, you know, my facilitator in my class said to use this. So, you know, that morning got up. Of course, here comes Lucas in his 3-year-old pajamas. Where's dad? Dad's at work, Luke. Well, I didn't get to say goodbye to him. I miss dad. When's he going to come home? I wanted to wave from the window when he was going to work. I said, so it sounds like you feel sad because you miss dad and you wanted to say goodbye. And he just looked at me and he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, let's go eat some breakfast. And I'll tell you about dad's day and when he's coming home and, you know, we'll think of something you can do in the morning so you can say bye to dad. So that was the beginning. We never had a nice morning like that from the time he was about 2 until he was 3. You know, we never had a nice morning because that whole thing would start. And he was used to me not validating him. So I helped him to process his feelings a little bit and understand how he was feeling. And I understood how he was feeling instead of just dismissing. I got it. Okay, this is why he's so upset. So that's just the first part. You know, another communication skill that we're going to learn more about later is then how do we talk to kids when their behavior affects us? We're used to hearing when we were little, you messages. Why did clean up the mess you made? Why are you always late? You should know better than that. What's the matter with you? So it makes the you person responsible for the problem. And so, you know, children hear that as blaming and shaming and nagging. And they start to feel discouraged and they might push back. If you have a Lucas at your house, he's going to start to push back. Or they're just going to shut down because they don't want to hear that anymore. And so what we're doing is we're still telling them how their behavior affected us, but we're doing it in a different way. And the way that we're doing it is we are using an I statement. So instead of you're always late coming home, we could say, when you're not home on time, I feel worried because something could have happened to you. When the kitchen or when the playroom is not cleaned up, I feel angry because it makes the house look messy. So you're taking the you part out of it. You're taking away the shame and the blame. And what you're doing is just explaining the facts. I feel frustrated because the living room's a mess. I feel worried because curfew was broken and I didn't know what happened to you. I feel very hurt because the tone of your voice is very disrespectful. And I can't talk to you right now because I'm very angry. So that's just a different way of saying the same thing, but you're taking responsibility for how you feel and you are modeling that for your child, but you're also letting them understand how their behavior affects you. So, like I said, those two things are not discipline techniques, but it's the beginning. Because when you use reflective listening and process their feelings, you know where they're at. And then when you turn around and use an I message, they know where you're at. So now we're on the same train. Now we can leave the station. Now we can work on discipline. Anybody got questions about that so far? Any thoughts about it? anything.
I think it has wider implications because I can remember that, mom would come home and no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. And it teaches learned helplessness. No matter what you do, it's going to be me that messed up. So the result is after that for so long, you just don't try at all.
You mean the you message? What's the matter with you? Why did you do this?
Once you hear that you message enough times, it becomes like, well, why am I even trying?
Right. So
Well,
can you
just, I was going to say, then you just turn it off.
It's called learned helplessness. If you ever experience with the dog, if the dog gets shocked in the cage, no matter what he does, he just kind of sits there whimpering, getting shocked all the time.
Right.
Yeah. And in other words, it takes away efficacy, takes away agency, rather, is what I mean. If you don't feel like you have any agency, you just kind of like, oh well.
And that's your learned helplessness. Yep.
Right.
I'm done. Can you see the difference using this? When I see the bike in the driveway, I feel concerned because it might get run over or stolen. That's different, isn't it?
Yeah. As an adult, I can look back on it that these things come out of adult frustrations, but when you're 10, 11 or 8 or 9, you don't reflect on it that deeply.
Yeah, it's true. It's just what you hear.
Yeah.
And then when we become adults, we do the same thing with our kid. And see, that's what was happening with me at our house. But my son wasn't having it. Like I did, I just took it and I didn't process it like you're saying. But my son was like, no, and he started pushing back.
Yeah, I grew up in the 60s, so there wasn't anything like pushing back. I probably would have met an early grave.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I was too. So I get that. And it was hard for me to use some of these techniques at first because I wasn't raised that way. Let it, like I would never have said no to my parents, and I didn't want Luke to do it either, but I wanted him to know how to say no, in a respectful way. I wanted him to protect himself with no when he needed to. So, when you and I were growing up, we didn't have 24-hour news. My TV went off, that I got that screen thing.
The national anthem.
Yeah, and the national anthem at 11 o'clock. So we didn't, I think it might have been even earlier than that, but I think it was like 11 o'clock. And we didn't have internet. So we didn't know about everything that was going on out there in the world. But, now I know that there are people in positions of power who will take advantage of a good girl, or a good boy. They're looking for those kids who won't say no. They're looking for those kids who keep their eyes down and do what they're told and are obedient. They're not looking for those kids like my son who will look you in the eye and say, no, I'm not doing that. He wouldn't say that to me either, but he would say no sometime. And I'd say, so tell me more, and I would hear him out. I would be fair. But if I had to say no, I would say, I could see that you're really disappointed that you're not going to that party today. What else can we do tonight so that you can have some fun? That was the way that I learned how to handle it. When I had to say, no, you can't go to a party where there's going to be alcohol or, something else. So it's just teaching them how to say the no rather than taking that personal power away. Thank you for that input. I appreciate that. I couldn't have said it better. So for children under 4 years old, discipline's going to look a little bit different. And we have this anagram that Joe and I learned a long time ago with our old curriculum, and we like it so much that we, use it so much because a lot of what you're doing under 4 years old is just distraction and ignoring misbehavior when you can, like when they're interrupting you or when they're saying no. You could say no, you're blue in the face, but you still have to do this or you still have to do that. So ignoring a lot of misbehavior. Or just structuring the environment. Me and my mom went back and forth because when my kids were babies, they used to go at her house and want to grab all her, she had a collection of bells, porcelain and glass and, you know, all kinds of things that she collected. And she didn't want to put them up. And I was like, Ma, you know, they're not going to learn anything if I just keep, if you smack their hands, they're not making that connection that you want them to make. All they're going to learn is that, you know, you're coming by and hitting them on the hand, you know, until they get old enough to understand what breakable means or sentimental means. Why don't we just put this up, you know? And she wasn't willing to do that right away. So I had to control the situation and not the child. So I just said, Ma, I feel really frustrated because I don't want to bring Luke here and have his hand slapped all the time while we're all hanging out in the living room. So maybe it would be better if he came and visited us at my house. So that didn't go over really well. My mom didn't drive. So, you know, we came to an agreement that she would take all her stuff and put it up until he learned what those words mean. Involving the child through choices and consequences. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You know, giving one-on-one time for each kid. Part of Luke's issues, I think, when he was 3 years old, was that my daughter Leah was getting all the attention because she'd just been born. And so, you know, I had to learn how to plan some time just for me and him, you know, time so that he would feel like he was getting attention from me. Some things I could let go of, like, oh gosh, I can't remember now what I let go of, but some things aren't worth your time always making your problem. Geez, Joe, help me with this. What's something that we could let go when they're little? I'm like drawing a blank.
I don't know. Sometimes if they're just teasing each other, sibling rivalry, that's not hurt. We don't have to go in there and stop it all the time, you know.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Joe. That's exactly it. Yeah, just that back and forth. Excuse me, sibling rivalry is normal. It's how kids learn to have relationships, you know. But when you, you know, you can let that go a lot. But when you know, when you can feel that electricity in the air, oh, somebody's going to hit somebody else, that's when you got to get involved. But some of that stuff, you know, you can let go of that. Increasing your consistency helps because the rules should be the same, whether you're at home or whether you're grocery shopping at Meijer or whether you're at grandma's house. So if I can not throw a temper tantrum at home, but I can do it at Meijer where mom's worried that everybody's going to look at her and judge her because I'm having a temper tantrum, maybe that's a good way to get my way, you know? So we need to be consistent all the time so that they understand boundaries.
I struggle right now. I get the constant no when it's time to eat. Breakfast, you've got to eat breakfast. No, no, no. I let that go. Lunchtime is time to eat. No, no, no. You know, all she wants to do is drink milk. What do you do? You know, I mean, I don't want to force feed her. I don't want to fight about it, but it's always no.
How old is she?
2.
She's 2. Well, yeah.
Proud of her. I'm proud of her. That's
What?
independence. Yeah, that's
She's
assertiveness and independence. She's going to use that in her adult life. It's going to be powerful for her. If you break her of that.
I keep thinking, don't worry, she'll eat when she's hungry, but you know, you do worry. It's dinner time and you've only had milk today and 1 bite of something.
So what happens between meals?
Nothing. She's not snacking. She just wants to drink. She was nursed until she was 18 months old. I think milk is a real comfort food for her. So she asks for it a lot. I mean, she literally can go basically without eating breakfast and lunch, and then she'll eat dinner really good.
Huh, that's interesting. She'll go without breakfast and lunch, but she'll eat dinner.
Yeah.
So for
But
lunch
want
and
milk in between. But want milk in between, you're saying?
Oh, constantly. And I try the distraction. I try apples, strawberries, raspberries, you know, even Teddy Grahams, anything. No.
Yeah, but that's what Teresa was saying. In between meals, if she doesn't want breakfast, in between meals, she's asking for milk until the next meal. So that's what you were leading at, Teresa, right?
Right.
So go ahead.
So, you know, you might have to steel yourself a little bit in between, maybe not give her as much milk at each meal that, you know, if you're giving her a whole like 8 ounces of milk,
I'm
maybe-
doing that. I'm giving her teeny tiny little bits here and
Oh,
there.
good.
And you know, I'm trying, but then all of a sudden when it's milk, you know, it's like, okay, she wins.
Yeah. No. That's not when she wins. Because, you know, what is she learning when she goes, milk, really loud, and you say, okay, you win, and you give her one? What has she just learned right there?
She's learning control. That if she screams and throws a temper tantrum, she's going to get what she wants. I know that, but
Yeah.
I'm just like at my wit's end.
So there's a couple of things. What's your name? I'm sorry. What's your name?
I'm Gwen.
Gwen. So Gwen, one of the things that you have to do, and I'm sure you might even be like starting to do this once in a while, is just steel yourself. When she screams like that, that's when that's something that you're going to have to let go of. You're going to have to not pay attention to her. And that's going to be so hard. You know, it's going to be very difficult because you're a good mom and you want your baby fed, but also, you know, that scream, or it just gets on your last nerve, and, you know, it's irritating and it's frustrating. But if you can hold out, it might last a day or two, but if you can hold out, and in the meantime, notice positive behavior. When she does sit down and she does eat a good meal, what you said she does do at dinner time, then you can encourage her. Hey, I saw you eat your dinner. I'm so glad you did, because I know you'll be healthy and strong. And that's it. Don't say good job, good girl, nothing like that. Tell her what she did right. And then don't go overboard. Make it short and sweet. And then the next day, do the same thing. So on one hand, you are ignoring that scream and that not eating business and getting too much milk. And on the other hand, you are noticing positive behavior. And it's like a freighter, Gwen, in the middle of Lake Michigan. If you turn that wheel, it's not going to turn because there's so much mass and speed behind it. But if you're consistent, you know, ignoring bad behavior, noticing positive behavior, pretty soon you're going to see the turn. And believe me, Gwen, I had to do this with Lucas because I used to rock him to bed every night. And so he would not go to bed on his own. You know, like I had to make sure he was rocked fully asleep and then put him to bed. Well, you know what? I got real tired of that. And my ex-sister-in-law, bless her heart, she said, this is what you got to do. And so I did it. I would put him to bed wide awake. He would scream and cry. I would, you know, put him back down in the bed, cover him up, and walk out of the room. And so, you know, both my husband and I took turns listening to him scream, and we would, you know, wait for 5 minutes, and I would go in there, turn on the light, cover him up, rub his back, walk out. And then Matt, my ex-husband, well, their dad would then do it, and he'd wait for 10 minutes and go in there. We never picked them up. We never, you know, gave them something to drink or something to eat or talk to them. We would just try to comfort them. And seriously, Gwen, it took like 3 days. And, you know, I had bags under my eyes and I hadn't slept for 3 days, but it worked. You know, that freighter started to move. So, you know, what, Joe?
Can I add something? That
Yes.
reflective listening slide also, Gwen, is when they don't eat the breakfast in front of them, and then an hour later, they want milk, to use that reflective listening to say, wow, you must be really hungry because you didn't eat breakfast. That must be really uncomfortable. You must be really hungry. And then maybe, you know, either, well, the next snack time, whenever the next snack time would be, the next snack time is in 20 minutes. We'll have to wait till then. What do you think of that, Teresa?
Well, I don't know if she's going to know what 20 minutes is, but
Well,
I mean, you know, whatever she's got to do in between time, you know,
a timer.
It's going to be hard though, Joe.
Mhm.
I mean, because, you know, a 2-year-old, you remember that 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And, but eventually what she's going to learn is no means no, first of all. I better eat when the food's in front of me or I'm going to be hungry and I can't rely on milk anymore. You know, those thoughts won't be that articulated, but she'll start to get the message. And it comes from ignoring negative behavior and encouraging positive behavior. The only thing is, the hardest part, I think, is steeling yourself to listen to that screaming, shrieking, either I want to get out of bed and be rocked, or, I want milk and I want to know, that's something. And one other thing, Gwen, is, if you look at her and roll your eyes, or, do the huffing thing, that's not going to help either, with that situation. So
I don't do that. But the funny thing is, if she tells me all the time, you're annoying,
ignore it. Just ignore it.
because you know where she gets it. No, because I say it to her, you're being annoying.
Oh gosh. So, what we were just talking about with Gwen is the same thing for an older kid. Gwen's daughter just learned a natural consequence. When I don't eat, when it's right there on the table in front of me, I'm going to be hungry, And this is what teaches kids what to do instead. Instead of falling back on their default behavior, is consequences. Natural consequences are really easy. And I'm sure Gwen's gritting her teeth when I say that, because she's got to listen to the shriek. But what her daughter is going to learn is, like I said, I got to eat when it's there, because I'm going to be hungry if it's not. And if they don't wear their gloves and hat outside when it's kind of cold, not freezing, but cold, what's the natural consequence, you guys, of not wearing your hat and gloves outside in the winter? What's going to happen?
You're going to be cold.
Right. So they're going to go, wow, I got to come in. I got to put my hat and gloves on. I'm cold. And that, that's pretty good. They learn 85% faster when they learn things themselves like that. So anytime something's safe, they can learn on their own, let them do it. Logical consequences come in when the natural consequence is not safe. So if there's a polar vortex out there, that's not safe. We can't let them learn a natural way. So we've got to get, a logical consequence set up. So when you're doing it, you got to remember the 5 R's. So first of all, it's got to be rehearsed. When you get your gloves on, then you can go outside. You can either be in on time and continue to go out with your goofy friends, or if you choose to be late again, I'll know you're not going to go out this weekend. You decide. That's rehearsed. All you're doing is telling those kids you have 2 choices. Most kids only get 1 choice. Clean up your room or I'm going to cut off your arm and beat you with it. That's it. They don't know any other choice besides that. But when you say to them, either come in on time or you'll choose to stay in this weekend, you decide. Now they know I've got 2 choices here to make. If I pick the wrong one, then I have to take responsibility for it. Why should they get mad at you? You let them know before they walked out the door. Now they have to deal with their consequence. And, I always backed it up with, I can see that you've chosen to stay in this weekend. What are you going to do next time? What can you do after that when you go out again with your friends? How can you get home on time? Do some brainstorming so that it doesn't keep happening over and over again. Or if they did come home on time, I'd use that encouragement again. Hey, I'm glad it's 8 o'clock. You're home safe. Great. Thank you. And let them go on their way, because that's reinforcing that positive behavior. So it has to be rehearsed. It also has to be reasonable so that it stays reliable. So if I ground somebody for a month because they came in late, is that reasonable, you guys?
No.
Because what's going to happen after a couple of days of them whining? What am I going to do?
You're going to back out.
Yeah.
So you're not following through with your consequences.
Yes. Get out of here. Stop whining. But I'm telling you what, mister, if you're late again, blah, 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 blah. I just lost my credibility because I caved. So it's not reliable. So I have to keep it reasonable. This weekend, okay, if it happens again, it might be, 4 days instead of just 2. But I always want to notice that positive behavior, because that's what's going to make it stick in their brain. It also has to be respectful. If I don't want them screaming and yelling and getting the vein right here in their forehead to pop out, I have to do the same thing. If I don't want them calling me a name, then I have to make sure I don't call them a name. As Gwen will just tell you, right, Gwen? You're irritating. They're going to do the same thing. So we have to mirror or role model what we want them to do. So that's the fourth R. The next one is the most important. It has to be related. If you take their technology away or ground them every time they do something wrong, it loses its meaning. It doesn't mean anything anymore to them. Okay, I just have to wait until she gets over it, and then I'll get my stuff back and I'm fine. Or I'll just go over Eddie's house and play with his technology. If you really want them to learn something, it has to be related. So what's related to taking technology away? What would that be related to? What would they have to have done in a misbehavior in order to get technology taken away? What do you think?
Not completed homework because they were on the technology.
Yes, there you go. That's one. Anybody else got an idea?
Using it inappropriately.
Right, there you go. Those things make sense. It's related to taking technology away. If they talk back to you and you take technology away, it doesn't make any sense, So they need, and that's the hardest one. This is the hardest one, granted, because we're so used to punishment, and this is not punishment. So a lot of times when people come to my parenting classes and they say, this is crazy, I can't think of anything that's related. I always ask them, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a related consequence that also punishes? Or are you looking for a consequence that will teach them what you want them to know at that precise moment? What do I want my child to learn right at this minute? And what kind of consequence can I use to help them understand that? Sometimes it'll end up being a painful one, like getting grounded for the weekend. Okay, you chose that. I'm sorry that you chose it that way, but this will be, this is, maybe we can do better next time. What can you do better so that next weekend, it's not a problem. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just, I'm afraid for my 3-year-old to play in the front yard because they're going to go in the street. So the consequences we have to pay in the backyard where it's gated, where the fence is there and they can't, get near the street. That's a consequence too. Let me tell you a real quick little story here. When Lucas was about, I want to say 7 or 8 years old, it became a problem for him to get up and go to school in the morning. Sometimes people are just tired. They don't want to get up. But when a behavior becomes a problem for you, it's then a misbehavior. And it was becoming a problem for me. Every day I'd go in there and I'd say, Lucas, get up. The bus is coming. You got to get up. You got to get ready. Come on, let's go. I had to do that 3-4 times. And I would end up getting so angry. And, he's walking out the door, la-di-da, and then I'm stewing all morning long. So I said, hey, Lucas, you know what? This is the thing. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to give this to you because you're 7 now and you can handle this responsibility. So you know what? I bought you an alarm clock. I bought him a real simple one. There's a button on the top. When it rings, you hit it, it stops. I said, what are you going to do in the morning when you get up, Luke? He said, I have to get ready. I have to eat my breakfast, grab my lunch. And when Jimmy Zick walks down the street, I'm going to go with him and we'll get on the bus. Wonderful. That's all you need to do, Lucas. So the next morning, I had to be consistent, right? So he gets up. I hear the alarm go off. I hear it go off again. It went on, then it went off. And I'm waiting. I don't hear anybody getting up. I don't hear any movement. So I'm like biting my inside of my mouth. I'm wanting to say something so bad, but I committed. So I'm not going to do that. So eventually I had to say, Lucas, Jimmy Zick is about 2 houses down. He's coming. You got about 5 minutes to get out of bed. So he scrambled, jumped out of bed, threw his clothes on, didn't eat breakfast. he's getting his shoes on. He goes, "You're probably glad that I didn't eat breakfast." I said, "No, I'm not. I feel sad because I know in about an hour your tummy's going to be really empty and growly. What can we do next time, Luke?" "I don't know." And he ran out the door. Same answer when he came home. "Okay, Luke, if you come up with an idea, let me know." Next morning, same thing, almost exactly, except he jumped out of bed like with 10 minutes to go. So he ran around. "Why didn't you wake me up?" "Well, it's not my responsibility now, it's yours." "Well, I'm taking this protein bar." "Okay, that's fine. And I'm eating it on the bus." Okay. "What can we do tomorrow, Luke, so that this doesn't happen again?" "I don't know." And he ran out the door. Same answer when he came home from school. So third day, I'm waiting. I hear the alarm go off. I hear him turn it off. And all of a sudden he's up. He's changing his clothes, combing his hair, brushing his teeth, eating his breakfast. And he goes, "I'm ready." I said, "Wonderful." I said, "What do you want to do?" He said, "I want to watch SpongeBob SquarePants." I said, "Great. Go watch it. When Jimmy Zick comes down the street, I'll let you know." And, he had like 20 minutes to spare because he got up. That was learning through consequences. Was it hard for me? Yeah, because I sent my kid to school without brushing his teeth 2 days in a row. First day, he didn't even have any breakfast. But you know what? He survived. He didn't die. I'm sure that teacher has smelled morning breath on a lot of those kids. I'm sure she was fine with it. But he learned, instead of me arguing with him every morning, he learned in just 3 days what a logical consequence is and how to take care of himself. So, I'm not saying this is easy, you guys. I'm saying it's worth it. So let's just practice on one of these. Can somebody pick one of these pictures and try to come up with a related consequence? Just to see. I'm not expecting perfection. Just to give it a shot and see if you get what I'm talking about. Anybody want to try that?
So for the first picture where she's on her computer and her homework is untouched, you could take the computer away. Consequences, you're on electronics instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing, so you can't have that.
Okay. How about either or before that? What would you say? You can either blank or you can blank. You decide. How would you say that?
You could either do your homework or lose your computer.
Okay.
Right. So if you do your homework, you can keep your computer, but if you don't do your homework, then you can't have your computer. Right?
Great. Yes, that would be the when and then. I was actually going to say that you were starting with the either or, and I liked it, so I stopped. But you could even say when your homework's done, then you can have your computer back.
Yeah. See, I used to have this. It was my kids are grown. My daughter's in college, but it was I let her do her homework whenever she wanted. She was allowed to do it whenever she wanted because she did it. She got herself up in high school. She got herself up for school. She took herself to school, came home, always had good grades, did her homework. She was a very well-behaved child. And so then her dad worked out of town. So when he came home, he wanted her to do her homework right now. So then it would turn into a fight.
Yeah.
So then we would not argue in front of the kids. So then I would have to pull him aside and say, okay, you're only home for a week and you're gone for 6. This is how we do it. And he was like, but that's not how it should be done. And I'm like, but that's how we do it. So it become, so yeah,
That is a great story. I like that.
You put the kibosh on that, huh?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
It was a struggle. It was a real struggle, I think, for my husband more than my kids because we had a set way of doing everything that worked for us until he came home and tried to change the rules. And then I would have to say, well, you're only home for 1 week, so you don't get to make those choices. If you're home all the time, then you can help make these decisions.
And to be fair to him, that's what worked at his house when he was a kid. you know?
It was, and it was the same thing
Yeah.
that worked at my house as a kid. Well, my parents tried to make it work, but it didn't actually work. But, and that's
Yeah.
why I chose to do it a different way, is because I didn't like the way I was raised. So I made those conscious choices to do it differently with my children.
Yeah.
And he
And it
never
and it
even,
was working too. Listen how beautifully it worked. You were doing it, it was working beautifully for you, That's wonderful.
it was. I
Yeah.
did, yeah. Raising children is definitely not an easy thing.
Oh, heck no. Nope. I'm glad it's over for me.
I
hope I can help
agree. My children are both adults, and I am so happy. I love having adult children.
Yeah. So, when Lucas, would come home late those times, I would try this exploring alternatives because, it's one thing to stop a misbehavior, but it's another thing when they got to find something, to do in its place. So that's why I think besides encouraging positive behavior, it's also important to help them explore alternatives. So, Luke, when I see you go to school without your lunch or without breakfast, I feel worried because I know in about an hour your stomach's going to be, churning and burning and all those other horrible things. So, what could we do to make sure that you get up on time? That's what I was trying to do when I was asking him that question, and he didn't want to be bothered with ideas, but kids will come up with ideas. Well, Mom, you just keep waking me up because it worked before. Okay, that's one problem, or that's one idea. What else can we do? Because if I would have said, Luke, no, that's a dumb idea because it's not working, then he would have shut down. Okay, you wanted an idea, I brought you one, and you just threw it away. So I can say, okay, yeah, that's an idea. What else can we do? And I would go through and discuss the ideas with him. I could just not go to school. Okay, well, what's going to happen if you don't go to school? Well, probably get in trouble. Yeah. So what else could you do? I guess I could turn off my alarm and get up. There you go. Let's try that. Let's try, shutting that alarm off and springing out of bed. Let's try it tomorrow and see if it works. Because he was 7 at the time, so I didn't want to give him a week. I want to give him a day or two. Was somebody going to say something?
Well, I'm like Gwen. So Gwen is the grandmother. I'm the grandmother as well. So we have multi-generations, right? So my husband's 62, I'm 65, my son's 26, my grandson's 8. So he does that whole talking, the talk, which really, really works. But I had to remind Anthony, you can see when he just shut down. It's like you talk just a little bit too much. And you can be in a household with these multi-generations and respectfully, I do mine my way, he does his way. Jasper respects all of us. He knows with Nona, if Nona says no pretty much means no. There's a no for a reason, and how I will break down and give him a little bit of reason why I'm saying no, which is like so against everything I do. But I will do that for him just because of the different generations. But I just think that A, knowing if they're not self-regulated, don't even try to discipline them. B, I think if you do whatever, that you can go about it in so many different ways. I just think if you show these children respect, that you respect them and you do value their opinions, but I do think it's really important that they know he knows the difference between us. Like no means no. No means no. And there's always a valid reason. I'll explain it to you if you want, but there's always a reason. So normally he doesn't bother me too much with that. He's pretty good with listening. And my son, of course, is more independent because he's 8. He thinks he's all grown, so he can get his own stuff. But I'm still the Nona, so we have a working relationship where Nona can baby him a little bit still.
Right. Yeah. So I'm glad it's all like you guys can weave that all together. It sounds like it's a positive, experience for all of you guys living in that house. So that's good. And the point you made about respect, Yeah, you know, every strategy is only as good as the relationship it's built on. And if they don't feel respected, it's going to make it even harder, you know, for them to learn. So, you know, I was going to go through the difference between praise and encouragement, but, you know, I don't think we're going to have time. So just to wrap it up, you know.
We have a whole lesson on that coming up.
Oh, yeah, we do. So create an atmosphere of cooperation. That's what Anne's saying, you know, where everybody's respectful. Give choices within limits so that they know how to make choices, so that they can be self-disciplined and show some self-control. And then be brave enough to let consequences occur. But be a little bit more flexible on things that are, you know, not related to respect or safety. So, I hope that helps. You know, it's a kind of a real quick introduction to what is usually a 5 or a 6 week class for us. So I hope that helps a little bit. I know it's a new idea, but you know, it's not that new. We've been doing it for 20 some years between myself and Joe. So any questions or anything before? I know you guys got to go. It's 3:01. Is there any question though that I could answer in a 30 seconds? Or if you think of something, you guys write it down and Joe will have an answer for you next Tuesday. How about that? We're both going to be here, so we can ask questions, right, Joe?
Absolutely.
Okay, as a review.
And some of these skills are kind of overlapping in other topics. Like iMessages and reflective listening are going to come up in other topics. Encouragement is going to come up with other topics. So they're all going to kind of build on top of each other and recycle some of the past trainings. So it's all going to come together.
Yeah.
So the real positive correlation to classroom management as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say that this is my first time joining. I'm just super busy, but all this can be related to when we work with our students as well. And, you know, it's all the same.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, these aren't parent-child skills. They're just relationship skills,
right?
People skills.
Yes.
All the same. Yep.
It brought back memories of Dr. Spock.
Oh, yeah.
Showing your age.
I know.
Just saying.
I know.
Well, Gwen was just saying she can't wait to hear about encouragement and praise, Joe. So
Yeah, I love that lesson. How to build healthy self-esteem.
yeah,
I'm a Montessorian, and so you know what part of the Montessori philosophy was we don't believe in extrinsic rewards.
Yep,
You know,
that's
so
praise.
I always struggled with, do you give allowance? No, why are you getting paid for doing what you should do? So
I have a whole thing on allowance.
Yeah.
If you want to give allowance to teach, money management, but you don't
that's
attach,
different. Yes.
Yeah, you don't attach it to chores. Because if you give allowance and attach it to chores, and then when they don't do their chores, what happens? They don't get their allowance, right? But then when the kid doesn't care about your allowance because he's making $15 an hour babysitting, then it's like, I don't have to do chores because keep your allowance. So then you just kind of stomped yourself into, well, now I tied money to chores and now he doesn't want the money. So now I got to force him to do the chores.
Good point.
You guys, thank you so much. It was a great presentation as always. Thank you guys for joining. We are having a few switch in topics over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to give the presentation. It just may not be in the order of the schedule that I originally put out. I'll put out a new schedule so that you'll know which topics on which days, but they are going to be continuing to come on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, Tony, did you get the new list of topics?
I did.
Okay,
good. And I'm going through those now.
Okay, great.
Thanks again, everybody.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.